This is the unfiltered feed. The unfiltered feed.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Feed podcast. I'm Ved, and I've got with me Yash, and we're here to discuss more cricket after a week of layoff. So, a lot of cricket has happened, especially in the IPL, of course, and that is all we're going to talk about because that is more than enough to cover at least an hour of us talking. So, how are you, Yash, and how was your week?
Hi, my week was really busy. My final exams have started, so I was very busy with preparation. And luckily, I had the first exam today, so feeling much better now.
Yeah, so even I didn't have a lot of work, a few exams, of course, but other than that, I was pretty free now heading into the finals, which will come up in a month. So, this is the best time and probably the last few weeks for me to enjoy my cricket before I head into a more stringent routine. So let us talk about the cricket that we enjoyed. Of course, the last time we recorded, things were pretty much the same. We haven't seen any major surprises in the last week. CSK were bad. They still are pretty bad, even though they won a
Yeah.
game finally. Punjab Kings are still unbeaten. So are the Rajasthan Royals. Royal Challengers Bengaluru, they did lose a game, but it didn't reveal any weaknesses as such. It only gave them a few positives, if anything. Mumbai Indians, I would say that is the only real surprise for us because we expected, or anyone would expect them to do well. So let us straight away actually get into that. They've got a big game coming up, and actually they've got a couple of tough games in a row. They play the Royal Challengers on Sunday night, and then in the upcoming week, they've also got a game against the Punjab Kings. And I think you know it
Yeah,
better.
they are going to play three very difficult sides in RCB, which is happening today on the day of releasing this podcast. And then they play Punjab and then Gujarat. So, three quite tricky games. And I think MI in the last few years they've been losing against these sides quite consistently. So I'm not very sure.
Yeah, they've lost quite a few games where they should have won in the past, but I feel that Mumbai Indians just don't seem to have it in them because year after year we see that we just keep seeing such a strong outfit in MI. But now I'm really starting to question if it is even a strong outfit anymore because once it's understandable, twice maybe, but when it's happening every single time, this is the kind of team who should come out and dominate without any questions, just the way teams like RCB have done in the past couple of seasons, or even Punjab Kings so far. That is the kind of performance I expect from a team like the Mumbai Indians, but somehow they just seem to be lingering at the bottom every time, and they just don't get that momentum. They did win quite a few games in a row last season, but it just doesn't feel that comprehensive or convincing. And I don't know how this is something that I can't explain because they're one of the best teams. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But do you think that if this season also doesn't go as per plans, and by that I mean at least a finish in the top two, do you think this team will have some tweaking to be done? Because you can't just assemble a team like this every time and still not deliver, and no questions asked, you keep coming up with the same team. So do you think this is the final season kind of for them to prove their strength before a major rejig again by Mumbai Indians?
Yeah, it's as you said, it's very puzzling to see Mumbai Indians not do well. But I think I have a theory for it, and I saw a few opinions from people on social media as well, which kind of agree with this. I think Mumbai Indians, this team that they've built is definitely a great side. They have all the bases covered, but it's not a team that is playing T20 cricket the way it is supposed to be played right now. Because if you look at the teams that are doing well right now, which is Punjab, Rajasthan, even RCB, they mostly win the match or they dominate the innings right from the start in the power play. Whereas if you've looked at MI, They usually like to start slowly. Players like Rohit Sharma and Rickleton, they usually get in, play a few balls, and then they start hitting. But by then, they've already lost a crucial part of the power play. Where nowadays, players like Abhishek or Suryavanshi, or even Virat Kohli and Phil Salt to an extent, they just keep attacking right from ball one, and the match has already gone way beyond your grasps. And the same thing happens with bowling. We saw in the match against RR. I think in the first over itself, Deepak Chahar conceded 22 runs. And then they brought in Bumrah, who also went for a few sixes. And by the time the power play was done, RR were already at about 80 runs. And then it becomes very difficult to restrict them to a total that's not above par. So I think MI, they just need to play a bit more fearless cricket. I think the players there are trying to, I wouldn't say protect their spot, but they're trying to play safe cricket, and they're maybe too worried about losing their wickets or going for too many runs. Because if you looked at the past MI outfits, they have always played similar level of cricket where they've always been very careful. But the only difference was back then T20 cricket itself was played like that. But now it's changed. Because of the impact sub, you usually find teams going all out right from ball one. And I think that's where MI is lacking in both the bowling and batting.
Yeah, that is quite true. And that brings me to my next point. Do you think they are kind of fixated in trying to recreate their team from their golden ages, which is, of course, the 2020 team that's considered as the gold standard? Do you think they are kind of trying to recreate that yet again, but they don't realize that T20 cricket has evolved and that no longer is applicable in 2026? So they're trying to run after something that was great a few years back, and now it is considered to be mediocre at best, because that is not how the teams are winning nowadays. As you mentioned, everyone go all out right from ball one because of the impact players. They have got the liberty to do that, and even if they get out, they still don't let that affect their mentality, and they come back in the next game and keep going in the same way because they back themselves. So do you think MI is still trying to get in align their side with the past rather than looking at the current standards across the world?
Yeah, that's a bit of an issue. Even when we looked at the squad, we did bring up the similarity to the 2020 squad. But I think it's also to do with the kind of players they have. If you look at Trent Bolt or maybe a Deepak Chahar, Shardul Thakur, or in the batting side, if you look at a Rohit Sharma or a Quinton de Kock, Ryan Rickleton, these guys are not modern T20 players. Ryan Rickleton does really well in Test cricket and ODIs. In T20s, he's good when he's in form, but he usually doesn't have the strike rates that the modern openers have. So I feel they're missing that one aggressive player who will kind of start giving them good starts, which is a bit ironic because most of these players have also played for Indian T20 sides in the recent few years. In fact, four of them were in the winning World Cup winning squad. So it's kind of surprising to see that they are not able to replicate that template with Mumbai Indians, given that they have so much experience from both the sides.
Yeah, it is quite worrying because this is the third season, and I know they're known to turn things around, and they might as well go on to do it this time. But this is not the way a team like Mumbai Indians should be playing, and the owners will be worried because they are used to winning. They've got a bit of a habit, and then suddenly for 5 years, if you don't win, something got to give, and
Yeah,
it might come in the form of getting rid of maybe Rohit Sharma or changing their philosophy because they have been trying to get this formula to work. Maybe it's time to change the formula. We'll get to know
yeah.
that
I
very
think
soon.
the issue also with Mumbai Indians is the team itself is so good. The skill that they have is so much that they are able to defeat teams that are weaker than them. We've seen that happen last year as well. But the moment you play a side that is as skilled or a bit better, and the side that is more suited to T20 cricket, that's when they kind of lose. And tomorrow, or today rather, they play RCB, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Mumbai Indians in the power play. They start off slow, and whereas on the other side, RCB will just come out guns blazing and just get 230, 240, 250, and then MI will always be on the back foot because that's exactly what happened against RR and also against DC because Delhi seemed to chase that score pretty easily and MI just struggled to get to even 160 on that pitch.
Yeah, now it's starting to look like they really shouldn't have lost that game versus Delhi because Delhi have gone on to lose the next two, and now they no longer look like a strong team themselves. So, those are the two teams in general who have kind of changed their trajectory in the past week. Delhi Capitals have gone on to lose two on the trot. Mumbai Indians, after winning the first game, which shook everyone, they returned to normalcy and lost both their next games. And they are in a similar situation, so that first game victory hasn't really helped them in any way. So I think let us move on to Delhi Capitals because that is a bit interesting as well. They started off really well. They had Samir Rizvi kind of get them through both their wins, and they didn't really look all that convincing with the bat, at least in those wins, because the top order collapsed in both the innings. And in the first game you had Rizvi and Stubbs kind of helped them chase down a lowish 140s total, and
Yeah.
this somehow got there. They should have been more convincing. And in the second game as well, Samir Rizvi again versus Mumbai Indians, you had Delhi Capitals under some sort of pressure. They lost two early wickets and then Rizvi came up again. So their top order wasn't really strong. And against Gujarat, the game that they lost, again you had finally KL Rahul scoring runs, but they still lost because Rizvi didn't perform. So they've always got that one performer and the others aren't stepping up. So do you think this team has already overachieved with those two wins? Or is it too early to say that and maybe the two losses are a blip?
I mean, the first loss definitely is a blip because they had the game in their hands. They needed two of two, and a single was available, and Miller didn't take it. I'm sure if he was in that situation again, he would definitely take the single to at least take the game to a super over. So that was a mistake on their part, and I think today or yesterday in the match against CSK, they were kind of blown away by Sanju Samson, and that can happen. There's no matter what bowling attack he's facing, if Sanju Samson is in form, then he can do anything. We've seen that in the World Cup as well. So I don't think it's a lot to worry. Plus, the biggest thing for Delhi is that they still don't have their strongest 11 because they don't have Mitchell Stark yet. I think once he comes, the bowling attack becomes much better. I think the batting, or at least the top order batting, is still a worry because they're playing Pathum Nisanka, but when Stark comes in, I'm expecting Pathum Nisanka to be dropped because they wouldn't want to drop the experience of Miller and Stubbs in the middle. So then you're again left with the top order muddle, which Delhi somehow always manages to find themselves in every year.
Yeah, and it is important at this stage of the tournament to keep racking up wins. Even though you have had just 4 games and you got 10 more to go, Delhi are going to play the next game after quite a long break, and it's going to be against the Royal Challengers, and it's a day game. They've got a lot of time to figure this out because you don't want to make losing a habit. And now that they've lost two on the trot, things will start to get a bit problematic. Those things that could have been swept under the carpet had they won, they'll now be focused on a bit more. And Hemang Badani, of course, the head coach, will be under a bit of scrutiny because honestly, they have done well. I don't want to disagree there. Even the game against Gujarat, as you mentioned, it was in their hands. But the batting is a bit concerning because you can't really put the blame on one or two because all of them have kind of stood up. KL Rahul has played a good innings, Nisanka as well, but they're not coming together as a unit. So that is something they
Yeah.
need to work on, and hopefully they can do that. And let us come to one of the best young finds of the week, for me at least, and hopefully for everyone as well, and that is Mukul Chaudhary for the Lucknow Super Giants. And I can't believe the way he turned the game around. It was gone, it was completely over, and he, I think they needed 54 of the last 4 overs, and he had Avesh Khan and Mohammad Shami and those people next to him. So basically, he didn't have any support in terms of runs. They were just there.
Yeah.
And from there, playing his 10th professional game of cricket in his life, which is quite incredible to do that in the IPL against KKR. Definitely, that will be a bit of a asterisk. But he couldn't have done anything else. He just had to face the bowling attack, and the innings he played, I can't believe it. It was so good. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was a great innings. I watched the highlights again and I kind of liked the temperament that he showed in the last over because from 7 of 4 it went down to 7 of 2, and if there was someone else they would have just tried to hit the ball as long as possible, but he still focused on timing it, and the ball was actually a very good one. It was a wide Yorker and he somehow reached for it and managed to clear the ropes. So
That
that
shot
shot
was
was
probably the
incredible.
best I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
exactly.
And he seems to have gotten some incredible core strength. Uses his core is unbelievable. And that is something not just Indian batters, I haven't seen many across the world manage to pull that off. And we did talk about him in our preview show as well. So always happy to identify talent before it shines, to put it mildly. And LSG, I think I'm quite happy with how they've gone. They lost a game against Delhi, and to be honest, they weren't out of it completely. They weren't outplayed in that game. Even though they could have been outplayed, they showed a lot of character with the ball in hand and stretched it as much as they could. And then they got a close win against the Sunrisers. Rishabh Pant finished it off for them. And then against KKR, another last over thriller. It is important to get such wins out. It lifts the team up and it gives you crucial points, because when you eventually don't qualify at the end of the season, these are the kind of results you look at and say that had we gotten those 2 points there, those 2 points there, we could have qualified. But to actually have gotten them, I think will hold them in good stead. And they've got a couple of big games again. Gujarat Titans is who they will play in a day game at home. Probably the game is already done by the time we upload this podcast. And then they play RCB in Bengaluru, and then Punjab in Chandigarh. So they've got, and then Rajasthan. So even they've got a lot of tough games coming up. So I do think those two wins will help them in the upcoming games, because they seemed a bit off at the start, but a couple of wins they'll always help get the confidence up. And do you think they're well prepared to face these big teams?
Yeah, I think Lucknow, the biggest thing is that they've won 2 games, which is very good. But they might not be happy with the margin of victory because both the games went to the last ball, and it's against the two weaker bowling attacks. So if you're doing that against them, it's not as confident when you're going to play teams like Gujarat or Punjab or even Bangalore, who have got a decent bowling attack. And I think this year, apart from Kolkata, SRH and CSK to an extent, every other team is looking very good. So all the matches are going to be tough. So I think for Lucknow, the best part is the 2 easy games that they played. They've won both. So that's the only good thing that they can carry forward. And now they just need to beat one of a Punjab or RR, and then suddenly they'll find themselves in the top 4, and then they just have to consolidate.
Yeah, I think last season as well, they at this stage of the tournament, towards the halfway stage, they were pretty decently placed. They had won, I think, 4 of the first 7, and
Yeah.
there were similar talks. But of course, they didn't have the bowling attack last time around. This time they do have, but last time what they lost in bowling, they made up for with their batting. And
Yeah.
this time around, batting seems to be a bigger concern for them than their bowling, which is a bit
Yeah.
worrying because Mitch Marsh hasn't scored runs. Nicholas Pooran has looked way out of touch. So, do you think their bowling, whatever they've gained this time around, has been cancelled out by their poor form with the bat?
It is to an extent, especially in the first match where I think at one point they were looking good and then suddenly they kept losing wickets. And then they were kind of forced, the bowlers were forced to defend a very modest total, which they actually did a good job with, at least in the first part of the game. But I think the batters will definitely come in form because players like Markram, Mitch Marsh. I'm not sure about Nicholas Pooran because he hasn't been playing a lot of international cricket, so you don't know the kind of preparation he's been doing. But Marsh, Markram, Rishabh Pant, now they've got Mukul Chaudhary, and I think Josh Inglis will join the team. Not anytime soon, but eventually he will. So that will bolster the batting further. So I think they should come off better in every game from now. But speaking of their bowling, I wanted to ask you about Mohammad Shami because last year was a forgettable season for him. He was playing at the road like Hyderabad pitch and he had a terrible season. But this year he's done so well and he went to Hyderabad and scored or he bowled for 4 overs, gave away just 9 runs and picked up the wickets of Abhishek and Travis Head. So what a comeback from him. And do you think he's still the old prime Mohammad Shami and is it unfair on him to not include him in the or not even consider him for the limited overs Indian sides?
Yeah, I think he has done really well. He doesn't look like he's 43 the way he's bowling, and he definitely is 43. He's not 37. Yeah. So, anyways, he's done really well, and I feel a lot of that has to do with him playing the entire domestic season because bowlers like him, how much ever you prepare off the field, you really get match fit by bowling. And he's one of those rare few bowlers who still follow that regime where you can't get fit off the field. The more you bowl, the better you become at it and you get into a rhythm. That is exactly how he has pulled himself into rhythm in the past, especially the World Cup in 2023, where
Yeah.
he was not being considered. He was not a starter, and then you had one injury, and he came in and he looked like he was there all along. And that is because he always kept himself match fit and he bowled wherever he could. And that is something he has done. He's played all three formats for Bengal in the domestic circuit. The numbers, I think, aren't much of a focus when you talk about players like Shami because the main priority is keeping them match fit, and that is what he has done. And one way to understand if he really is in form is to look at his seam position when he's releasing the ball, and it is as straight as it can get. And that is
Yeah.
exactly what I'm seeing here, and that is enough for me to convince that Shami is in form, and which is always a great sign. I don't know if India will look at him for the World Cup. They have kind of signaled that they aren't, and I can't really blame them because you can't keep going back to the same players. And though it is also a bit hard done for Mohammad Shami, I think there is a reality. You will always want to groom youngsters, and it's not that India don't have any resources. If they fail miserably, then it would have been a different case. But they see potential in Harshit Rana, Arshdeep, Mohammad Siraj, and Bumrah. So that is a kind of pace attack. And if you add Prasidh Krishna to that, I think that is good enough to work with. So I don't see them going for Shami for India, but for Lucknow Super Giants, I think he's going to be a big boost, and you can already see that the bowling attack is doing much better than it did last season. They've got Prince Yadav, who has also nurtured, and I think Shami, even though he's a player here, he also acts as a mentor to all the youngsters, and he works really hard. I've seen that in the nets. After he's done bowling, he doesn't just sit out and look after himself. He looks after all of his young colleagues, and Prince Yadav, Naman Tiwari,
Mohsin,
Arjun Tendulkar, Mohsin, all of
who
them.
lasts only for 4 overs, apparently.
Yeah, and they've also got in. I know I'm completely digressing, but they've also got in George Linda as a injury replacement for one Vanindu Hasaranga.
Wow.
And considering they're currently playing just three foreigners, he might straight away walk into the 11 in place of someone like a Manimaran. So that is going to further boost the bowling, and Mohammad Shami will continue to play a big role.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm very impressed with him, likewise with Bhuvneshwar Kumar as well, because even during our preview, I was mentioning that I was really scared for Bhuvi because he hasn't really played a lot of competitive cricket since the last IPL. But seeing him being right on the spot, right from ball one, was really good. And I think he's one of the IPL greats. And I read a very interesting stat that there are, I think, over the IPL history, there have been at least 10 tens of millions of balls being bowled. But recently in the RR versus RCB game, for the first time ever, it happened that a bowler who had picked more than 150 IPL wickets was bowling to a batter who had also picked more than 150 wickets when Sandeep Sharma bowled to Bhuvneshwar Kumar. So that was the first time something like this happened. Obviously, it's very rare, but that was a nice start. And it's great to see these players who have been IPL veterans. They're still finding a spot, even though we are saying that IPL cricket has evolved, but you still need experience.
Yeah, it is quite good that you brought that up. It is incredible to see the longevity because you know that nowadays time has been passing really quickly and we fail to acknowledge that players like Bhuvneshwar, Kumar, Mohammad Shami, Sandeep Sharma, all of them have been here for quite a while. At least 13 years long career is not a joke when you're a
Yeah.
fast bowler. And to still come up and deliver with the same passion and possibly with the same impact on your side is quite brilliant to see. And I hope it continues because it will be sad when players and legends like Bhuvneshwar, Kumar, Mohammad Shami, and let's put Sandeep Sharma there as well. When they eventually do retire, they will be remembered for their legacy in the IPL, and they're well and truly the first generation of Indian IPL legends, at least in terms of bowling.
So from Sandeep Sharma, let's talk about his side, which is the Rajasthan Royals. And I cannot be more happy for them because during our predictions, I had put them as the team that was going to do the or have the biggest improvement compared to last year. And right now, they are at the top with 4 wins, and I would say 4 quite convincing wins. The first one was against CSK, where they single handedly destroyed CSK. Then they had a pretty good win against Gujarat, where it was a bit close, but in the end, they managed to win it pretty easily. Tushar Deshpande doing the magic there in the last over. And then two back-to-back dominant wins against MI and RCB. So they have played some difficult sides and they've won all of those games. So are they looking like the favorites this time, or is it too early yet?
Yeah, they have played some really good cricket, but the reason why I can't really call them favorites this early is because Rajasthan have a tendency to start really well and then just dive off, nosedive. And I hope it doesn't happen this time around because they're playing some brilliant cricket and it's all on the back of their homegrown talent, which I'm really happy about. It's not that they've seen players do well for other franchises and then just pick them up and they perform it. They have literally done all the hard work in building these players, and even Vaibhav Suryavanshi has been scouted by them, and they're doing a lot of hard work in getting these players up to the standards, and now seeing them perform for Rajasthan is quite heartwarming. And definitely, I would keep them as one of the contenders for the title just because of the way they're playing. But also, you have to consider that it is IPL and it is a very long tournament and things change. You have seen a lot of examples. Even in the last season, your Delhi Capitals begin with 5 wins and then they didn't even qualify. So things change, but whatever I've seen, they look like the most team and they look like a team for the long run.
Yeah, RR to me, this have so many feel good vibes because, like you said, all of their leadership group is someone that they've groomed themselves. Because about 3, 4 years back, you had players like Jaiswal and Parag being the youngsters who were playing around the likes of Josh Butler, Sanju Samson, and in the bowling department, you had Trent Bolt, Yuzi Chahal. And now all these guys have kind of grown up and they are now the elder statesmen leading the side. The only issue I find with RR still is the lack of experience because outside of Ravindra Jadeja and Sandeep Sharma, they don't really have too much IPL experience where you don't have players who have played playoffs or knockouts or who have won multiple championships. Because if you look at the batting, it's completely inexperienced. You've got Suryavanshi and Jaiswal. Jaiswal has played one final, but that's it. Other than that, he's not really competed at the top level. and then the captain as well is doing it for the first time this year. So far, it's gone well, but as you said, the moment you start losing a few games, that's when it all starts spiraling down. So it will be interesting to see how they deal with that. And in the bowling as well, you've got Ravi Bishnoi, Nandre Burger, and even Jofra Archer hasn't been at fighting at the top level in the IPL at least. So a lot of new things for these guys to see, and I really hope they can deal with it because I would be very happy if RR were to win this time.
Yeah, and I think I have a lot of respect for someone like a Zubin Barucha and the kind of work he has put in. It is very visible. And then you've got, as you mentioned, not a lot of experience with playing IPL at the big stage, but definitely they've got some international experience in Jofra Archer, Nandre Burger, and Sandeep Sharma, Ravindra Jadeja, Ravi Bishnoi. So I think it's a well-rounded bowling attack. They get in a Indian rookie pacer as the sixth option in either Brijesh Sharma or Tushar Deshpande. So I'm not too concerned about their lack of IPL experience. Of course, they will have to deliver the way they have been delivering, even in the knockouts. And that is what it is. When you have to win tournaments, you have to win the big moments. But the good thing that I see here is that the next two games are against SRH and KKR. There is no guarantees, but these are the two teams you would prefer playing at any point, at least as far as this tournament is concerned. And then
Yeah,
they play LSG and then SRH again. So the first seven games, you could maximize your victories and pile up the points because you never know. You don't want to put too much pressure on yourself. As you mentioned, it's a young team, so who knows, they might crumble under pressure in a must win game. So it's better to get as many points early on in the tournament. So if they get at least at least five wins of the first seven games, then in the next seven they have to win just three to qualify, maybe four to get into the top two. So they should approach it in that way because I know it's very early to think about qualification, but I'm sure that they will already be thinking about it because anything can happen at any point. So you have to be prepared.
yeah, exactly. And I'm also very impressed with Riyan Parag as the captain because honestly, last year I had my doubts because he looked clueless right from the first game. But I think that's got to do with the team as well because it wasn't his team, it was Sanju Samson's side. So there were plans that maybe Sanju Samson had worked with the management, but now this is his team completely. And the way he's expressing his thoughts during the interviews as well is it shows a lot of clarity. Plus, he reminds me a lot of early Rohit Sharma, where he was data focused and had lots of preparation for different kinds of matchups. And we keep seeing that during the matches, where he brings in the right bowlers for the right opposition batters, and more or less it always works. It helps that the bowlers are all in form, but as a captain, you need to make the right calls as well.
Yeah, so I think we have kind of touched upon all of the teams more or less. So let us talk about the upcoming week and the games that I'm looking forward to. Of course, we've got the big game MI versus RCB on Sunday night, a box office thriller at the Wankhede, and then Monday night SRH. I'm not too sure, but of course, the world will be watching the game just because of that 15-year-old boy, Vaibhav Suryavanshi. He's kind of taken the world by storm and deservedly so. What he's doing is unbelievable. And then we move on to Tuesday, and it's Chennai Super Kings taking on KKR. I think that is a very important game for both the teams because you don't want to be five games and just a couple of points on the board. So KKR, if they win that game, they'll move to 3 points, which will be look much better, even though they have clearly not looked like they're going to win even once, maybe once, but they've really underperformed, and that is an important game for them. And on Wednesday, I've got RCB taking on LSG. Again, I would
A lot
say
of history between these two sides.
Avesh Khan and that helmet. And then on Thursday, we've got Mumbai Indians taking on Punjab Kings, which is a mouth-watering clash. So this is right about the time you would want to be in Mumbai. Get there nice and early, watch the MIRCB game, wait for a couple of days, and on Thursday you've got MI Punjab. Couple of years back, we could have done that. And then you've got Gujarat taking on KKR in Motera. And next weekend, right before we record our podcast, again, we've got RCB taking on DC in a afternoon game, and then SRH versus CSK on Saturday night. So a lot of interesting games to see. Which one do you think is the most consequential in terms of the points table and to make the league more interesting?
I think today's game, MI versus RCB, and then MI versus Punjab. I think these games are very important because if MI manages to win at least one of these games, then you would probably see the IPL open up a bit. But if RCB and Punjab manage to win both their games, then you probably just see a divide between the top teams and the bottom teams, where you have RR, RCB, Punjab, who are fighting for the top spots, and then the others are all fighting in the middle. That's not usually how we like it, but somehow it always manages to become quite tense at the end. But we want closer games, and we want all the teams to be fighting for the playoff spots. And I think, by the way, this is the rivalry week, as Star Sports likes to call it. But there's no MICSK in the rivalry week. Instead, it's MIRCB. So clearly, the IPL has moved on.
A tough pill to swallow for the CSK fans, and hopefully tonight's victory will give them a bit of a soothing effect. CSK play just a single game in the next week, and then they play on the weekend again. So a bit of a relaxed week for them. Even Rajasthan, or rather Delhi, even they haven't got much of action in this week. I'm really excited to see how Sarich play. My bad, how LSG play because have to be one of the teams I'm keeping an eye on right
Obviously.
from the start, and I want to see how they play against Gujarat, which is already done, but then against RCB because we haven't seen LSG really back off against RCB. They somehow managed to give it their all every time, so it's going to be an interesting game. RCB at home last season they didn't do really well, but this time it's kind of turned around. They lost their away game and they won both their home games. So I want to see if the pattern continues, and it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, I think LSG, they have played mostly easier bowling attacks, so it will be nice to see them go up against the likes of Bhuvi, Josh Hazelwood, who's fit again. So I'm looking forward to that game. And you mentioned that CSK play only one match. I think that's a good thing for them because now they've won their first game, and I think today they looked a very good side. They finally, I think, got the combination properly. They brought in Akhil Hossain as well, and finally Devon Brevis is fit. So this break kind of gives them a chance to regroup, and hopefully they can carry this momentum forward.
Yeah. So with that, we've done everything we had to related to week 2 of the Indian T20 League. So let us come to our new segment for the IPL special, and that is let's discuss.
हाँ
And
बक, क्या बोलते हो?
basically, I've just got one question which I'll come up with every week until the IPL ends. And my question to you for this week is the conditions are easier to bat than they have ever been. And you see that the pitches have been flat and you can't really increase the size of the grounds. So, do you think the only logical way to kind of bring some balance between bat and ball again is to get rid of the power play or reduce the power play from 6 overs? Because I think power plays were introduced initially because T20 were just an extension of, or rather a short form of ODI cricket. They weren't seen as their own format, and maybe power plays were relevant at that time, but now that people have lost all that fear and everything favors the batters more, do you think there's no need of power plays anymore, or at least not one third of the innings being a power play?
Yeah, I actually don't agree that the conditions are more suitable for batting. I think obviously compared to bowling, it's obviously going to be more favorable towards batting, but it's not by a big margin because I think teams that have bowled well, they've actually managed to do quite well. And if you look at the last few games, especially the game that Delhi played against Gujarat, or even the Lucknow games, or to an extent even RR the bowling. You see that if you're able to bowl well, then you can still get the batters out and put them under pressure. So I think it's just that the batters have become so tuned to just hitting from ball one that it feels like batting has become easy because every now and then one side will just get things working and then they'll score big runs. But even today in the afternoon game, if you saw Punjab, they managed to restrict SRH really well. If it was a batting track, then SRH would have scored 280 like they did a few years back. But good bowling can still reward you. But I think power play, that's a good idea actually because 6 overs, it either makes or breaks the game. So you could either restrict that, or I would maybe recommend having the Big Bash League style where you have a power play for 4 overs and then you can take additional power play during the innings whenever you want. Or I would probably extend it further and allow a bowling power play where for a couple of overs you have extra fielders outside the ring and the bowlers can use it strategically. So you might want to have a bowling power play right at the beginning where you put the opposition under pressure, or else maybe in the middle where you want to restrict the batting, you can have extra fielders outside. So they can maybe innovate on this instead of forcing the impact sub rule.
Yeah, and one, uh, I can't really call it as a a proposal, but it was an idea that popped to my head a couple of weeks back. As you mentioned, bowling power play, I think the way you can ensure that it's a bowling power play, because nowadays even having an extra fielder outside doesn't really make a difference because you can still find ways to score. So my idea was, why not have an extra man on the field in the bowling power play to make it 10 fielders on the field with the keeper and the bowler to make it 12. So
So the
that
impact
would,
sub comes in and nobody goes
yeah.
out.
So that will be quite interesting to see how things might go if you have an extra fielder, because you'll have, and that fielder can be anywhere. So you automatically have the extra fielder outside the ring and an extra man on the ground itself. So I think that can, I know it won't happen, but I would like to believe that will help the bowling team much more than whatever we just said.
Yeah, obviously. I think it's very difficult to implement because then it makes IPL completely different from any other cricket
Yeah,
tournament.
it'll become a banana republic.
Yeah, although the impact sub actually does do it. I think only SA20 does it, if I'm not wrong. But I think this is a nice teaser to our game show, which is coming up soon, which is based on something similar.
Yeah, so that was my way to integrate and collab with that. So we'll definitely talk more about it in the coming days. And until then, hope you guys are enjoying our coverage of the Indian T20 League and the Indian T20 League itself. So
And
until
before we close, I'm sorry, I had brought up my phone earlier, and I don't think you got the reference, but it was a nod or a slight dig to Mr. Barucha, who somehow managed to sneak in his phone during the match inside the dugout. And during the live broadcast, he was seen checking his phone with Vaibhav Suryavanshi right beside him. And the BCCI,
Zubin Barucha?
Zubin Barucha, and BCCI has taken note of it and is likely that RR will now face a huge penalty because it's absolutely banned from using. I mean, the coaches, support staff, and the players are banned from using their smartphones while they are in the dugout, which is why you see all the players drop their phones in the bag once they get out of the bus. So somehow Barucha found a way to sneak in the phone, and he also showed it to the public during broadcast. So trouble for RR.
We'll need to verify that because, as far as I can remember, Zubin Barucha doesn't really travel with the side. It might be one of the Rajasthan Royals managers, but
I,
yeah,
I I think it's Zubin Barucha, but yeah, we'll verify it.
yeah. So might be some legal trouble for Rajasthan if that's the case,
Only
because
this can derail the season for them now.
I'm pretty sure you are not allowed to use a mobile phone on the ground. Maybe the managers can do it, but inside. If he's
Yeah.
doing it on in the dugout, then it's a breach. So we'll get to know more about it, and that is quite a scary way to end the podcast. But
Yeah,
That's how we do things here at the
expect
Unfiltered
a
Feed.
shot from Ved soon, verifying this and putting it out.
Yeah, and I hope you guys liked my TUF mini, in which I talked about why Pacers are getting injured more often than they used to. So I won't spoil it for you guys. I'm sure you haven't watched it yet, so please go and do. And until then, this is a goodbye from us.
स्टेडियम में शोर है, एनर्जी ऑन द फ्लोर है. दिस इज द अनफिल्टर्ड फीड. द अनफिल्टर्ड फीड.